some agenda items. Public hearing for the original budget 2025-26.
Yes, ma'am. That's just opening the floor at this point for a public hearing. If there are any public comments, we would invite them to come forward now so that we can entertain those comments on the budget.
Okay. Do we have anybody who would like to make a public comment on the 25-26 budget? Okay, I guess not. So we can move on to our agenda items.
Yes, ma'am.
Agenda item number 1, adopt budget resolution for the original budget for the 2025-26 fiscal year.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Poole. We are excited to present this to y'all tonight. Very thankful. Normally, we don't present this till around August of each year, so we're excited to bring it to y'all a little more earlier this year. And so we are presenting the proposed original budget for 25-26 for all funds. And so I did send this to y'all about 2 weeks ago to give y'all plenty of time to look through. I know it's a whole lot of information, but I was going to hit some of the high points tonight. The budget, I printed a copy of the majority of the funds for you. I did not print the grant funds, but I do have those if y'all have any specific questions. Obviously, stop me and ask me if y'all have any questions as we go through. So on page 2, this is where the revenues start for the general fund. This will be our first section to go through. And you'll see our local revenues are first. We're proposing about an 8% increase overall in local revenues. The majority of that increase is going to be in interest income, adjusting that up to current expectations for next year of what that would look like. There are a couple areas that we're adjusting down slightly for next year. Another large area that we're seeing an increase in is the Medicaid reimbursements. The state has finally caught up with those, and so we are able to get a better idea of what those reimbursements will be year to year. There were a few years where the state was a couple years behind, so we were really unsure year to year what we would receive, but that has leveled off, and we are able to get a more consistent reading on what those revenues will be. The next section is going to be our state revenues. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Could you provide some explanation for the increased rental income?
It's just the rental of the facilities throughout the parish. And so in 2024, we were at $71,000. It's hard for us to know year to year what that'll be because we don't know what facilities are going to get rented out. This is going to be for any of our facility usage. In 2024, that was $71,000. I had budgeted very conservative for 25 at $45,000 just because I didn't want to plan for revenue to be there that was not. When it ended up coming in this year, it's up to $139,000. As y'all have seen, we've been presenting more facility, continuing facility usage for several of the facilities. Also, Ms. Spinney and the Finance Department have been working together to make sure that we have a better process in place to track those rentals, to make sure that we're billing out those rentals as they are coming through, and I just think we're having a more use of our facilities at this point. Based on how high the revenue was for those 2 years, I did increase it for 26.
Commended. You came to us and made some suggestions regarding earnings on our various funds that could be enhanced if we made some changes. We did, and proof's in the pudding.
Yes, sir.
The numbers, that's a significant change. So kudos to you and your department.
Thank you, Mr. Bullard. That's actually one year of all of the services. So we get Medicaid reimbursement for nursing services, for therapy services, for behavioral health, and for transportation. There were some years where we were only getting the transportation reimbursement. There were some years that we got multiple years of, like you'll see in 24, the Medicaid reimbursement was $2.5 million. That was 2 years of all 4 of the reimbursement types, plus the monthly reimbursements that we get for the services. Are you good? Okay. Anything else? Great questions. Thank y'all. State revenues. This Our state revenue is primarily consisted of our MFP revenue. I did budget down just a little bit on MFP just to be conservative. I never know year to year what that's going to look like, and what all will be incorporated into MFP that may not have been incorporated there before. So that reduction in MFP is not due to student reduction as much as me just trying to be conservative when planning for 25-26. You will see on page 2, there's a large amount in other restricted revenue under that state revenue. This is going to be for the state supplement. I have $5 million budgeted right now for the state supplement. It was just over $6 million this past year for the supplement. Currently, the supplement is still on the table in legislature. That has not fully been approved. If that does not get approved, we will have to come back and ask for an amendment of that portion, but that's what that's in for right there. And so that's what primarily makes up our state revenues, and then the federal revenues here are going to be, you'll see a reduction there in the federal flood control. This is a federal reimbursement we don't file for. We never know what's coming. We never know what the amount is, and we have no way of estimating what it's going to be year to year. And so just trying to get a better estimate of that for the next year. The next section you'll see is a large area. It's called Other Sources of Funds. These are going to be sales tax and ad valorem that are collected in another fund and then transferred over to the general fund. That's why these are in that section. And overall, we're showing about a 1.4% increase in that total section there. The next several pages of the general fund are going to be our expenses. Obviously, about 80% of our expenses are salaries and benefits. The salaries have been adjusted for the updated salary schedules for next year that have been approved by the board. They're also adjusted based on anticipated personnel changes that we may already know of for the next year, as well as trying to be conservative there. I am budgeting a very, very, very small amount for a supplement to allow us the availability of paying a supplement next spring if that were to come through. But it's a very, very small amount right now, and it's just to give us that authority to pay it in the spring if funds are to be available. And so that's what we have there. We've also adjusted any benefit rate changes that we already know of for the next year. Any other questions in the general fund? On page 57, you'll see the estimated ending fund balance for the general fund. Overall, I'm showing a net increase in the general fund of $220,000 for the year, ending at $64.9 million in the general fund, which is 22.68% of the fund balance. That's the current estimate on the general fund for 25-26. Yes, sir, 22.68. Yes, ma'am. It says 56 in the bottom right corner. The page numbers that are running consistent with the headers are the page numbers that are underneath the draft stamp that's on, if you hold them like this. So I was trying to run a consistent number of page numbers. That's why it's underneath that draft stamp. These reports all had to be run separately for each individual fund, so when you flip to the next page, you'll see it starts over on page 1 if you use that other set of numbering. The next several funds that are included in here are the Child Nutrition Fund, which we are budgeting to be balanced for the 25-26 school year. So we are very thankful to Ms. Horton and her team for continuing to work on that fund. And then the next several funds would be the sales tax, salary and insurance, and other miscellaneous funds. Are there any specific funds or questions that anybody has as far as the original budget for 25-26?
Thank you, Ms. Bamberg. Do we want to entertain a motion to approve the request to adopt this budget?
Budget as presented.
Got a motion to approve by Mr. Bullard, a second by Mr. Faulting. Please vote. It's unanimous, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you,
All
Ms.
right,
Poole.
moving next to the next agenda item, request to approve back-to-school check guidelines for the 25-26 school year.
Yes, ma'am. These I also sent to y'all last week. This is the back-to-school check guidelines for 25-26 to be paid in August of 2025. The only change that we are making in the current guidelines is to adjust the date of payment. I know historically this payment has always been paid the very first day of school. But as I tried to explain in the email, especially with the new system, this is causing more and more issues. With the timing primarily of when employees are hired, especially those that are hired later in the summer. HR and payroll are having a lot of trouble getting them in the system, getting everything set up so that we can cut that check the first day of school. We're also having issues with employees not showing up on the first day of school, but we're direct depositing now. Which helps everyone overall to direct deposit, but we don't have the availability of pulling the check back when they don't show up that first day. And so we have trouble recouping money from people that did not notify us that they would not be returning to work that first day of school. It would help everyone across the board to ensure a more accurate payment and a payment that makes sure everyone gets the funding on the date that it's to be paid, if we could push this back to August 25th. So that's the only proposed change that we are making at this point. Are there any questions?
So got a motion by Ms. Smith and a second by Ms. Brotherton to adopt the guidelines. So vote. Okay, unanimous, passes. Item 3, request for approval of the 13th check guidelines for 25-26 school year.
Yes, ma'am. This is the 13th check guidelines. This check is normally paid the last working day before the Thanksgiving break, is when we normally pay this out. The date this year would be November 21st, 2025, and we have no change to the current guidelines from the prior year guidelines. And so these are what we're presenting tonight for your approval.
Got a motion to approve by Mr. Faulting. Second by Mr. Bertrand. Please vote. Motion passes. And then discussion, the final agenda item for this committee is discussion only, the March 2025 financial statements.
Thank you, Ms. Poole. These have been sent to you and included for your review. If y'all have any questions, definitely let me know. This is the month that we just present them for y'all's review. And so we'll do a more in-depth review our next Finance Committee. Any questions?
Any discussion on that?
Information to us to have ample time to review, so appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Bamberg. Outstanding job.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other comments, this will conclude the Finance Committee for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.